Imagine this, it's 1889 in Paris, and there's this young woman. She's sprinting down the street, holding medicine tightly in her hand. Her heart's racing and panic in her eyes. All around her, the city is packed because of the famous World Fair. I mean, there's laughter and excitement, people having a good time, but not this woman. She's terrified. She pushes past the tourists, the street performers, and the crowds. Her breathing was heavy. She was desperate to get back to her hotel room. Finally, she reaches the entrance of the hotel. She busts inside and immediately rushes to the front desk. You see, she frantically tells the clerk that she needs a key to her room, the same room that she left her seriously ill mother resting in just a few hours before. But instead of handing her the key, the clerk just looks a little bit confused and says very quietly, "Ma'am, there's no such room. You arrived here alone." She runs upstairs, flings open the door to the room, and she can't believe her eyes.
Where's my mom?
See, the room is completely changed. We're talking about different furniture, new decor. It's almost like her mother was never even there. She would run back downstairs, begging the manager and the clerk and even the doctor who treated her mother earlier in the day, but they all deny ever seeing the older woman with her. It's almost like her mother never existed at all. Now, in that moment, her reality completely falls apart and she's trapped inside a nightmare that, well, no one else will believe. But what if that nightmare was just getting started? Welcome back to Retraced Echoes. On this podcast, we dive into history's most eerie mysteries and the legends that still haunt us to this very day. Tonight, we're looking at one of the strangest stories you'll probably ever hear, the vanishing hotel room. Now, the setting's in Paris back in 1889, and of course, the World Fair is going on. A woman comes back to her hotel room to care for her sick mother, but she finds that the room and even her mother, well, they've completely disappeared, almost like they never existed at all. Now, in this episode, we're going to break down the story piece by piece and explore why some people say that it's just an old legend, while others argue that it's actually a cover-up of something much darker. We'll look at some genuinely bizarre theories and how this chilling tale, well, how it keeps resurfacing in pop culture, from books and movies to even TV shows. Finally, we'll get into why the story still feels so unsettling today more than a century later. And if you enjoy these kinds of mysteries and want more stories like this one, take a second to follow our podcast. And if you're on the YouTube machine, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Also, let me know your thoughts on this episode by leaving a little review, because hearing from you truly makes a difference. Okay, let's dive into the mystery. Let's retrace the echoes, if you dare. Now, the strange story of the vanishing hotel room starts in Paris during the summer of 1889. Now, the city is buzzing with millions of visitors that's coming from all around the world, and they're coming to see one thing, the famous World Fair, an event showcasing mind-blowing inventions, cultural exhibits, and, well, new technologies. Now, amongst these visitors was a young English woman and her elderly mother. Now, they were extremely excited to explore the fair, and somehow they managed to secure a modest hotel room that wasn't very far from the event, something that was pretty lucky, especially considering how packed the city was. But their excitement, it quickly turned to fear when the mother suddenly became very sick. Now, worried, the daughter called for the hotel's doctor. After checking the old woman, the doctor, he had some bad news. You see, she was seriously ill, and the only medicine that might help her was actually across town at the doctor's own pharmacy. Now, knowing the time was crucial, he gave the daughter the prescription and said that she would have to go by herself. He couldn't risk anyone else getting it wrong. So she took off running, clutching that prescription as tightly as she could as she would weave through all the crowded streets with different visitors and street vendors and horse-drawn carriages. And with every single delay, her anxiety continued to just creep up. Now, she would finally get the medicine and race back to the hotel, desperate to help her mom. But once she got inside, the relief had turned to confusion. When she asked the front desk clerk about her room key, she looked completely confused. She would stare off blankly. She had no clue what she was talking about. In fact, she insisted that she had checked into the hotel room alone. Now, panicking, she would grab that guest registry right off the counter and she would start flipping through the pages, but her heart sank when she didn't find her mom's signature. I mean, it wasn't even there. Instead, it was someone else, as a complete stranger. Now, you have to think about the mental psyche that would cause. She would run upstairs completely terrified. She would throw open the door, and what she saw she wasn't ready for. Everything had changed. The furniture, the decor, the entire room had looked completely different, as if her mother had never even been there. Desperately, she would plead with the hotel manager, the clerks, and even the doctor that had treated her mother earlier, but they all denied ever seeing the older woman. They stayed calm, polite, but they were firm. Her mother? Her mother didn't exist. Feeling utterly isolated and questioning her own sanity, the young woman's reality had started to kind of crumble beneath her with all these shared denials. Soon, whispers of the strange events began spreading all around Paris. The story had passed from person to person, and eventually it made its way into sensationalized newspapers across all Europe and even America. Now, with every single retelling, the details, they would change just slightly, embedding this mystery even deeper into the public imagination. And just like that, the legend of the vanishing hotel room was born. A strange and haunting mystery that left generations wondering what really happened inside that Paris hotel. What truth could possibly be hiding behind all the silence? Now, as intriguing as the vanishing hotel room legend is, there's plenty of people that thinks that there's a much simpler explanation. You see, to them, it never really happened. I mean, skeptics point out that despite researchers combing through historical records, newspapers, hotel logs, and diplomatic communications, you name it, no actual evidence has ever surfaced proving that the story's true. And trust me, they've looked hard. In fact, the very first mention of the story, it didn't even come out until years later. And when it did, it popped up in sensational newspapers. Newspapers known at the time for mixing fact and fiction to boost a few sales. Back then, dramatic headlines and juicy mysteries is what sold newspapers, and journalists, they weren't afraid to blur the lines between reality and a little bit of entertainment. Now, folklore experts, they also recognize this legend as a textbook example of an urban myth. Now, these types of stories usually claim that they're based on true events or personal accounts, but you see the details are always conveniently vague, and that makes them impossible to actually verify. Now, another issue the skeptics will always highlight is how hard it would be to cover something like this up. I mean, imagine an entire hotel staff and even a doctor. Local authorities, they're all agreeing perfectly without a single slip-up that this woman never existed. I mean, especially back in the late 1800s, there's no phones, there's no quick way to coordinate between everyone. It's just hard to believe. And on top of all of that, there's no historical records, no eyewitness testimonies, no solid clues at all. I mean, if a visitor really did disappear this dramatically at the famous Paris World Fair, this would have been huge international news. But nothing credible was ever reported. Now, still, even though skeptics don't buy the story's historical fact, they admit that it sticks around for a pretty good reason. I mean, it resonates with us because it taps into universal fears. Being isolated and misunderstood by those around us, and even doubting ourselves and our own sanity. I mean, in other words, it's kind of a story that we remember because it makes us feel uneasy. But see, here's the thing. If the legend really is just folklore, why can't we shake that feeling, that tiny voice that keeps asking us, what if the story's actually true? Now, despite all the doubts about the story, there's plenty of people that still thinks there's a real and honestly pretty chilling explanation behind the legend. I mean, you gotta understand, it's Paris in 1889. Now, the city was packed, visitors flooding from all around the globe, and all for the World's Fair, which was basically France's big moment to shine. I mean, this wasn't just an event, it was a massive display of technological power and national pride. I mean, Paris needed everything to be absolutely perfect. No bad press, no drama, and especially no rumor of dangerous diseases. I mean, believers in this theory say that when the mother became seriously ill, the hotel staff and the doctors immediately recognized symptoms of something that was really serious. Could have been anything. Could have even been the beginning of a plague. And that kind of news, it could have set off some pretty massive panic. It would have hurt France's international reputation and potentially sparked an economic disaster. So according to the theory, authorities, they quickly came up with a very dark plan. The moment the daughter was sent away to fetch medicine, which was conveniently across town thanks to the doctor, that's when they acted. The mother's body was secretly removed. The room was completely cleaned out and redecorated, and all the hotel records, guest books, medical files, anything with the mother's name was quickly destroyed. Think about it. Hotel clerks and maids and doctors, police officials, they all would have had to have been bribed. Maybe they were pressured or even forced into silence. Now, it sounds extreme, but history is full of a ton of examples of where the government tries to hide or prevent the widespread panic that would be caused by different stories like this, or even to protect their own public image. And you see, here's the kicker. There's always been these very quiet rumors floating around Paris of stories of guilt-ridden confessions whispered privately between different families and friends of those who were involved. Now, these fragmented stories, they hint at a very disturbing truth beneath all those official denials, and that makes the legend feel even more real. Believers also point to psychological manipulation. Nowadays, we call that gaslighting, as another crucial part of the cover-up. By repeatedly insisting that, well, the mother never existed, and then labeling the daughter as emotionally unstable, authorities, they would have made sure that no one believed her desperate claims. And in the end, supporters of this theory, they argue that the vanishing hotel room isn't just a creepy urban myth. It's a frightening example of how far people's willing to go to protect their own interests, even if it means erasing someone's existence entirely. So you have to ask yourself, could a city really pull something like this off, or is the truth behind the story even darker than we once imagined? Now, if the standard explanations didn't quite convince you, there are some strange theories about what really happened that day. I'm talking about explanations so unusual they'll make your head spin. First off, we have the timeline split theory. Again, you got a daughter that's running through the crowded streets of Paris. She's desperate to find medicine for her sick mom, but while she's out, what if she accidentally slipped into another reality? I know it probably sounds a little wild, but people who support the theory believe that the huge crowds, the intense energy of the 1889 World Fair, it might have created some type of cosmic event, enough to fracture reality itself. I mean, think about it. When she returned to the hotel, every detail had subtly changed. We're talking about the guest registry that no longer had the mom's signature. The room looked completely different. And according to supporters of this idea, these small but shocking changes, they fit perfectly with documented cases of something called time slips or encounters with alternate universes. Some even suggest that these timeline splits, they might naturally fix themselves over time, quietly erasing evidence of the memories, making it nearly impossible for us to try to find any type of proof of what happened. Now, if that theory feels a little bit too sci-fi, then let's look at something more grounded but equally disturbing: the deadly illness cover-up. Now, according to this one, the elderly mother actually became sick with a highly contagious and deadly disease, maybe cholera, possibly the plague. To avoid mass panic and protect the reputation of the World Fair, authorities took immediate, drastic actions while the daughter was away getting the medicine. They swiftly removed the mother's body, cleaned and changed the entire room, and carefully destroyed every record mentioning the mother. Hotel staff, police, even doctors, anyone involved would have been pressured or bribed to stay quiet. Now, history has plenty of examples where the government has hidden dangerous outbreaks, making this scenario disturbingly plausible. Then there's the third and possible creepiest theory: mass gaslighting and entity erasing. Now, this idea suggests that the disappearance wasn't an accident or even about a disease. Instead, it was a carefully planned psychological operation. Maybe there was espionage, political intrigue, or deep family secrets involved. Something serious enough to justify completely erasing the mother's existence. Now, in this scenario, hotel staff and local authorities, they deliberately convinced the daughter and everyone around her that her mother never existed. This wasn't just denial. It was a coordinated effort to rewrite reality itself, possibly involving early methods of hypnosis or psychological conditioning. The daughter would have ended up pretty confused and isolated and questioning her own sanity. Now, these fringe theories, they remain captivating because they tap directly into some of our deepest fears, the idea that our memory and realities can be manipulated or erased completely. Could one of these strange explanations actually hold the truth, or is the real answer something even darker, stranger than we possibly could ever imagine? Now, the legend of the vanishing hotel room, it didn't just stay buried in old newspapers and whispered around different campfires as a scary tale. It became a huge influence on popular culture, inspiring countless movies, TV shows, books, you name it. And as core, the story, it taps into some pretty universal fears, things like isolation, paranoia, the idea that your entire world can come crumbling from underneath your feet. One of the earliest and probably most famous was that of Alfred Hitchcock's classic 1938 thriller, The Lady Vanishes. Now, in that one, Hitchcock's moved the setting from the hotel room to a train, and of course from Paris to Europe. But the heart of the story was exactly the same. Someone disappears without explanation. Everyone then denies it. It leaves the main character alone, desperate, and questioning her own sanity, much like the story we told today. Another powerful adaptation comes in 1950 with a British movie called So Long at the Fair. Now, this film, it sticks a little bit closer to the original story, and it's actually set in the actual 1889 Paris World Fair. Now here, a young woman's brother vanishes overnight along with the entire hotel room, and again, everyone around her insists, well, he never existed. Her frantic search and the disbelief she faced, it was perfectly capturing the dread of the original legend. And over the decades, similar themes, they pop up in other films too. In 1965, the movie Bunny Lake is Missing, it featured a mother desperately searching for her daughter. But no one believed that the child was even real. Even as recent as 2005, the movie Flight Plan, starring Jodie Foster, kind of echoes the same chilling idea. A mother wakes up mid-flight to find her daughter missing, and suddenly, no one on board remembers seeing the child at all. Now, television shows have jumped onto the idea as well. Classic series like Alfred Hitchcock Presents and even Beyond Belief Fact or Fiction, one of my favorite shows, they frequently use certain variations of the vanishing hotel room's unsettling plot. Then you got things like books and radio dramas and even modern podcasts that uses, if anything, a few of the elements from the legend to build suspense, exploring things like memory manipulation, isolation, collective denial. And without visuals, audio storytelling like podcasts and radio dramas, it can make this kind of mystery even more terrifying, letting listeners fill in the blanks with their own imagination. That's what we're doing on this podcast right now. But beyond entertainment, the vanishing hotel room story, it kind of serves as a powerful metaphor. Psychologists and educators and commentators, they often reference it when talking about humanity's vulnerabilities to manipulation and denial and even mass hysteria. So what is it about this story that makes it stick around generation after generation? What gives it this kind of staying power that most urban legends can only dream of? Well, when you dig deeper into the vanishing hotel room legend, it's not just creepy, it's also revealing some unsettling truths about us, both as individuals and as a society. On a personal level, the reason this story sticks with us is because it kind of targets some pretty deep-seated fears. Think about it. Losing someone you care about with no explanation, and then being told by everyone around you that you're just imagining things. It's literally the definition of gaslighting. I know you've been gaslit. I know I have. It's a psychological tactic where repeatedly denying something makes you start to kind of question your own sanity. It's terrifying because it exposes how fragile our perception of reality really is. And speaking of reality, this legend also reminds us of how shaky our memory can be. I mean, psychologists have shown over and over again that our memory, they're not really reliable on what we think. They can be easily manipulated, especially if someone in authority repeatedly tells you that there's something that you thought you remember that you really don't. Or they tell you things that you don't remember that they want you to now remember. It happens over and over again. I mean, legend perfectly captured the vulnerability, showing us just how quickly our sense of truth can be undermined and even erased, leaving us completely alone in our own confusion. But you see, this story, it doesn't just affect us individually. It has something important to say about our groups that surround us too, and how those people act. I mean, collective denial, the act of an entire group pretending something never happened, is shockingly common in real life. Whether it's to keep order, maintain power, or protect a reputation, people often choose to look the other way, refusing to acknowledge very uncomfortable truths. And it's easier, after all, to just ignore something disturbing when confronted with it directly. Another thing the legend highlights is society's historical bias against certain voices, particularly women's voices. I mean, think back to the story itself. A young woman tries desperately to tell people that there's something wrong, but instead of listening, they label her as unstable or hysterical. Now, unfortunately, this isn't just fiction. I mean, history's full of examples where women's experiences have been completely ignored or even dismissed. So the legend, it challenges us to recognize and confront these biases head on. Now, on top of all that, the story is set in an international event, the 1889 World's Fair, which subtly points to our society's fear of even outsiders. The cover-up and denial in the legend mirrors real-life anxieties about foreign influences, cultural misunderstandings, or even contagious diseases from abroad, fears that can lead to paranoia, prejudice, and even isolation of different individuals. I mean, think back to, I don't even think I can say these words on the YouTube machine anymore, but that specific virus that hit in 2019. And then lastly, the legend of the vanishing hotel room, it serves as a powerful warning of how easily people in power can rewrite history or even erase inconvenient facts to serve their own interest. I mean, this idea feels especially relevant today in a world where there's all kinds of misinformation. I see it on the daily basis. I mean, it's a hot topic. So what makes this legend so compelling is that it forces us to think not just about memories or the truth, but also how easily both can be manipulated. I mean, it's a chilling reminder that reality just isn't something we experience, it's also something shaped by forces much bigger than ourselves. So as we wrap up this strange and unsettling legend of the vanishing hotel room, we're left wondering. Sometimes reality can be way stranger and even creepier than anything we can dream up. Whether you think this story was an elaborate historical cover-up or a disturbing example of psychological manipulation or maybe something else we can't quite understand, it definitely challenges us to think about what we accept as the truth. What about you? Have you ever encountered a mystery or an experience that's made you question everything you thought you knew? If you have, we'd love to hear about it. Feel free to share your own strange stories with us. Reach out on any of our platforms or even our website or even down below in the comments. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure you follow or subscribe to Retraced Echoes so you don't miss any of our spooky stories. Speaking of next time, we'll be diving into another eerie story filled with secrets, suspense, and questions we might not want to know the answer to. Until then, keep asking questions, stay open-minded, and remember, sometimes the truth is hiding just beyond our reach. Until I see you in the next podcast or the next video, goodbye.